What if I told you that the difference between a really highly productive, focused week and just a miserable, painful one came down to, well, to the exact pair of slippers you decided to wear on a Tuesday?
I mean, it sounds a little crazy, but forget those dramatic life overhauls, right? We're not talking about waking up at 4 a.m. to run a marathon.
Right, or like throwing out absolutely everything in your kitchen.
Yeah.
Because real life doesn't actually happen in those sweeping, dramatic shifts.
No, definitely not. That kind of massive overhaul is just exhausting. It sounds great in theory, but it usually crashes and burns by, like, Thursday.
Exactly. It happens in the tiny, almost invisible details. And that is exactly what we are exploring today on this deep dive. Our mission here is to look at the surprising, undeniable power of hyper-specific personal tracking.
Yeah, it's about finding those microscopic levers that actually, move mountains.
Right. And we've got our hands on a really fascinating piece of source material today. It's a highly detailed personal journal entry and review.
It's titled Balance and Growth, 2026 Week 25 Review, right?
Yet published on June 21st, 2026 by an author named Ang. And our goal today is to extract actionable insights from Ang's incredibly granular life data so you can apply this stuff to your own life without getting overwhelmed.
And we are going through everything here. I mean, from sleep hygiene and diet ratios to pet coding projects, all the way down to fish keeping.
Fishkeeping, I know. But the sheer volume and precision of the data in this journal is just something to marvel at. It's like treating your life like a rigorous science experiment.
It really is, and the insights it yields can fundamentally change how you operate.
It's like debugging software, but the software is your own biology. So let's start with the physical foundation, because before you can conquer the world or even just, finish a side project, you need the energy to do it.
Absolutely. You have to have the battery charged.
Right. And Ang's tracking reveals how tiny tweaks create massive physiological differences. Let's look at sleep. In this week's review, Ang averaged 6.9 hours of sleep.
Which is pretty specific.
Yeah, but the real breakthrough wasn't about trying to force 8 or 9 hours. It was actually about the equipment in the room. Okay, let's unpack this, because on the surface, a fan is a fan, right? It moves air.
Would think so, yeah.
But Ang discovered that a standing fan is vastly superior to a ceiling fan. Why does the shape or position of the fan suddenly change the quality of human sleep?
Well, it comes down to the physics of airflow and also our own biological thermostats. A ceiling fan pushes air straight down, right? So it's dispersing it outwards and creating a generalized circulation in the room.
Okay, so it just mixes the air up.
Exactly. But a standing fan provides direct, targeted airflow. Ang noted that combining this directional wind with the air conditioning, plus the ambient cooling from the rainy weather outside, well, it creates a very specific chilling room temperature.
We actually want to be chilled to sleep well.
Oh, we need to be, yeah. Our circadian rhythms dictate that our core body temperature has to drop. It needs to go down by about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate and, more importantly, maintain deep restorative sleep.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize the core had to drop that much.
Yeah, so that directed wind from a standing fan, it facilitates rapid evaporation and cooling right on the surface of your skin. It literally acts as a biological switch, signaling the brain that it's time to power down.
I love that. So you don't just guess why you woke up groggy. You don't just say, oh, I slept bad. You look at the logs and realize, I used the ceiling fan instead of the standing fan. The system didn't cool down enough.
Right. It's just an environmental micro-adjustment. What's fascinating here is how Ang applies that exact same diagnostic logic to physical exercise.
Oh, the step count stuff.
Right.
This part is so revealing.
Wow.
So Ang averages about 4,888 steps a day. Just normal baseline stuff, grocery runs, some gardening, trips out to the fish store.
Right. Perfectly healthy baseline.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
But then there's this one spike on the data heat map. Ang is traveling and pushes past 9,000 steps.
Which, for a lot of people isn't an extreme amount of walking, especially on a trip.
Right. But here is the critical variable. Ang did those 9,000 steps wearing slippers.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's the killer.
The immediate result was relapsed knee pain and severe muscle spasms, to the point where even routine massaging wasn't fixing it. I mean, they're just soft slippers.
Yeah.
How does that cause a total system failure?
Well, think about what happens when you walk in slippers. They offer zero arch support, and crucially, they have no heel lockdown.
Meaning your heel isn't secured to the sole of the shoe.
Exactly. So with every single step you take, your toes are subconsciously clenching and gripping the bottom of the shoe just to keep it from flying off your foot.
Oh, wow. You don't even realize you're doing it.
You don't notice it at all, but that tiny repetitive clench completely alters how your foot strikes the ground. And that altered foot strike pulls slightly differently on your ankle.
It pulls on the knee.
Bingo! The ankle yanks on the knee. You're sending a shockwave of biomechanical misalignment right up what we call the kinetic chain. The muscles around the knees start to spasm because they are desperately trying to stabilize a joint that is suddenly moving in a completely unnatural way.
That is wild. So the body's system failure threshold isn't just 9,000 steps. It's exactly 9,000 steps in slivers. Boom! Error logged.
Yeah, exactly. It's so precise.
And the lesson Aang took away was brilliantly simple. If you're traveling and walking more, you just have to wear proper walking shoes. You can't wear slippers. And this level of tracking, it continues right into the diet, too.
Yeah, the weight logs.
Right. So Aang's weight dropped this week from 70.14 kilograms to 69.72 kilograms. But the key discovery wasn't just what was on the plate. It was when the plate was empty.
The timing proved to be just as critical as the contents, if not more so.
Yeah, Aang found that having an early dinner, specifically establishing a hard window between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., significantly reduced water weight the following day. Why does the clock matter so much for retaining water?
It's all about how our bodies process insulin and sodium over a 24-hour cycle. So when you eat earlier, say at 6 p.m., your insulin levels have several hours to spike, process the food, and then return to a baseline state before you go to sleep.
Okay, and why do we want insulin at baseline before bed?
Because insulin directly communicates with your kidneys. Lower insulin signals your kidneys to excrete excess sodium. It flushes it out.
Oh, I see.
But if you eat a heavy meal at 9 p.m., your insulin spikes right as you go to sleep. High insulin tells your kidneys to hold on to sodium. And where sodium goes, water naturally follows.
You literally wake up trapping liters of water weight in your tissues simply because of the hour you ate.
Yeah.
So my late night takeout isn't just, sitting heavy in my stomach. It's acting as a salt trap, holding water all night.
Precisely. By strictly defining that 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. window, Aang is actively aligning digestion with human circadian rhythms. It's allowing the kidneys to do their overnight maintenance without interference.
That makes perfect sense. And Aang is also meticulously tracking the actual makeup of the meals, aiming for specific ratios. I think it was either 2:11 or a 1:22 ratio.
Right, which breaks down to portions of plants, protein, and carbs. So a 2:11 would be 2 parts vegetables, 1 part protein, 1 part carbohydrates. It's a very systematic visual approach to building a plate.
But the journal notes that travel absolutely throws a wrench in this system. When Aang eats out, local cuisines at restaurants are almost always loaded with hidden salt and sugar.
Yeah, restaurant food is notoriously hard to track.
So instead of throwing in the towel, Aang makes informed micro-adjustments, swapping sugary local drinks for plain water just to maintain the baseline and balance out the restaurant food.
It's about knowing your variables so you can adjust them on the fly. You can't control the chef's salt shaker, but you can control your beverage.
It really makes you wonder about your own bad days, doesn't it? Like, how often do we write off a terrible, sluggish Wednesday by saying, oh, I'm just stressed out, or I'm just tired?
When really, it's just a technical glitch. Maybe you ate dinner an hour too late, or you wore the wrong shoes on a long walk, or your bedroom was 2 degrees too warm.
It fundamentally changes your relationship with your own well-being. It moves a bad day from being this vague, uncontrollable emotional cloud into a highly solvable technical glitch.
I love that perspective. It's so empowering.
So Aang fixes the physical foundation. The sleep is optimized, the digestion is aligned, the knee pain is logged and prevented. What happens when your body isn't fighting itself anymore? You suddenly have a surplus of energy.
And looking at Aang's logs, it's fascinating where that energy goes. It shifts directly from physical maintenance to intellectual output.
Right. We move from physical boundaries to intellectual boundaries. Aang writes 3 posts daily, reads fiction sporadically, and is even working on a pending book titled 3 Highs, or San Gao Kongzi Jinan.
Which is an impressive output.
Very impressive. But the coding section of this journal is what really caught my eye. Aang is hopping through all these massive GitHub repositories, working with Go, Python, Elixir, Erlang, Rust, Haskell.
A very diverse tech stack.
Yeah, but Aang makes a very deliberate, almost shocking choice here.
A complete conscious uncoupling from the current tech zeitgeist, yeah.
Exactly. Aang is completely, totally ignoring the massive artificial intelligence and large language model phase that is currently dominating the entire tech industry.
Just opting right out of it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I have to push back on this a little bit. Is it actually an advantage to intentionally put on blinders like that? If you're a software developer in 2026, Ignoring the AI boom feels like career suicide.
It definitely looks that way from the outside.
Why ignore the biggest trend in the world just to tinker with tiny fixes on your own personal pet projects?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, what Aang is demonstrating here is a masterclass in intellectual autonomy. We live in a world of absolute information overload, right?
Oh, totally.
Every headline and industry newsletter is screaming that you must learn this new technology or be left behind. Intentionally opting out of that hype cycle is a profound act of mental self-preservation.
Okay, good point.
Look at the specific technical details Aang mentions. They intentionally delayed upstream continuous integration updates for Elixir 1.20 and Erlang OTP 29.
Wait, okay. For those of us who don't spend our weekends in GitHub, translate that for me. What does delaying an upstream continuous integration update actually mean in plain English? Is that like ignoring a massive iOS update on your phone?
It's even deeper than that. Imagine you volunteer to constantly update and maintain the plumbing for a massive, constantly changing apartment building.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. That's what maintaining complex upstream software can feel like. It becomes a treadmill of endless obligation to the broader industry. By consciously delaying those heavy, demanding system updates and ignoring the AI noise, Aang reclaims all of that cognitive space.
Ah, I get it. So they aren't maintaining the whole apartment building anymore. They're just retreating to work in their own private workshop.
Precisely. Focusing entirely on what Aang calls tiny fixes in personal pet projects provides an immediate feedback loop. It gives a high sense of agency.
Because you're in control.
Exactly. It's a crucial outlet for genuine satisfaction and learning, dictated entirely by internal curiosity rather than external industry pressure.
It's like turning off the notifications for the entire internet so you can finally hear yourself think. It's powerful. I mean, think about the industry trends or societal pressures in your own life.
We all have them.
What massive hyped-up conversation do you need to actively walk away from so you can find real joy in your own tiny fixes?
It requires a tremendous amount of quiet confidence to look at the bandwagon and say, I see you, but I'm going to stay right here and work on my own thing.
And that desire to control and cultivate personal projects naturally bleeds into Aang's physical environment too. Because no matter how optimized your body and mind are, eventually the real world intervenes.
It always does.
When external forces disrupt your plans, you have to create environments that you can control. And in this week's review, the ultimate uncontrollable external force arrived: the weather.
Right, the unseasonal rains.
Yes. So, according to the journal, it's supposed to be heat wave season. But instead, there are these unseasonal, repeated, endless rains. And it just derails everything. Aang had all these plans for outdoor home improvement.
Painting, fixing broken appliances, big gardening chores.
All of it delayed.
Mm.
Rained out. You can't paint a house in a downpour.
Yeah.
So what does Aang do? Pivot. Instead of fighting the sky, Aang takes field trips to buy fish.
Right. Specifically sourcing dwarf cichlids and sparkling gouramis.
And taking the time to switch over to sponge filters.
Yeah, Aang completely declutters the front yard fish area and goes a step further, setting up these outdoor ponds on the backyard balcony, filling them with aquatic plants.
It's a total shift in focus.
And this is my absolute favorite detail. Aang introduces a juvenile polar parrot cichlid to act as the first gardener for this new ecosystem, with plans to add surface-feeding fish like guppies soon. Oh, and Aang is also taking photo walks with a mobile macro lens during these trips to the fish store.
The macro lens is such a telling thematic detail there.
So what does this all mean? To me, it's like Aang is playing the architect of a tiny, controllable universe. The weather outside is chaotic, it's unpredictable, and it's completely ruining the big house painting plans.
So Aang responds by building a perfectly balanced, microscopic aquatic world on a balcony.
This raises an important question about the psychological concept of the locus of control.
Locus of control.
Yes. It's about where you believe the power in your life resides.
Yeah.
When macro nature, like the unseasonal rain, is uncooperative, it can make us feel entirely powerless.
Like we're just stuck waiting.
Right. Our locus of control shifts externally. We feel like victims of circumstance. But creating micronature, like a balcony pond, shifts that locus back internally.
Bai becomes the architect of the pond.
Exactly. And look at the language Aang uses. Choosing a specific fish, the polar parrot cichlid, to act as a gardener. Rather than just dumping chemicals in the water to manage algae, Aang is building a natural, self-sustaining cycle.
Wow.
It mimics the complexity of the natural world, but within strictly defined, manageable boundaries. Beating these micro ecosystems provides a tangible, visible sense of progress when the larger life projects are stalled by the rain.
It builds emotional resilience. And the macro lens on the phone camera ties right into that. If you can't paint the whole house, you zoom in as close as physically possible on a single leaf or a tiny sparkling gourami.
You find focus and clarity in the granular when the big picture is literally a washout. It's an incredible coping mechanism. When the macro is chaotic, master the micro.
It really makes you think about how you handle derailed plans. When external forces absolutely ruin your weekend, do you just get frustrated and scroll on your phone?
Usually, yes.
Right. Or do you have a balcony pond equivalent in your life?
Yeah.
A contained physical space where you can still exercise control, practice creativity, and find a little bit of peace.
I think we all need a balcony pond, a system we can understand and nurture when the rest of the world refuses to cooperate.
We really do. So if we look back at this whole 2026 week 25 journal entry, the logical through line here is just remarkable.
It really connects beautifully.
It goes from the physics of swapping out a ceiling fan for a standing fan to optimize the thermodynamics of sleep, to figuring out the exact biomechanics of why slippers cause knee pain at 9,000 steps,
Right.
to intentionally ignoring the biggest tech hype cycle of the decade to protect cognitive space,
Yeah.
all the way down to building tiny balanced balcony ecosystems when the weather ruins your weekend.
It all comes down to the immense power of self-awareness and highly intentional micro-adjustments. It is the absolute antithesis of the dramatic movie montage.
It's the slow, methodical, highly rewarding optimization of everyday reality. Which brings me to a final thought that I cannot shake after reading this log. The data showed Aang exactly what happens when the controlled environment breaks down, right?
Yeah, the travel logs.
When Aang travels, the routine collapses. High sugar, high salt restaurant food, logging 9,000 steps in terrible footwear, waking up with knee pain and muscle spasms. It's chaos.
It is chaos.
So consider this. What if the ultimate value of keeping this kind of granular data on yourself isn't just about optimizing a perfectly boring, predictable Tuesday at home?
What do you mean, what's the alternative?
What if tracking all of this is actually about writing a hyper-personalized user manual for your own body and mind? Think about it. You track the data at home, in safety, where you can control the fan and the dinner time. You figure out your exact failure thresholds.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
That way, when the chaotic, uncontrollable outside world forces you completely out of your routine, you know exactly what levers to pull to survive the disruption.
You're not just tracking good days, you're mapping your own resilience for the bad ones.
Exactly. You have the manual. You don't need a grand overhaul to fix your life. You don't need a montage. You just need to know how to read your own logs. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you take a moment this week to look at your own logs, find your own micro adjustments, and keep exploring.